Happy Breeders' Cup Friday. Breeders' Cup 2024 is upon us. Matt Bernier here on the FanDuel Racing social channels. Not out at Del Mar this year. A little bit of a departure for me. I'm waiting on kiddo number 2 to show up. When they want to come, they'll come. But I couldn't afford to get out to the West Coast and have something happen and not be able to get back here to the East Coast. So I'm holding it down from Southern Maine. And this is a little bit different than what we've done in the past. Typically, you get all the soup to nuts. You get all the big names and all the big handicappers and analysts coming in here, and we kind of wheel through them. Everybody's working right now, either on the Players Show or over at FanDuel TV. So you're stuck with me for the next, let's call it 20 to 25 minutes, somewhere thereabouts. We're going to do this show here this afternoon. It's going to be the late pick 5, races 6 through 10. Tomorrow, we're going to do 2 separate shows. We're going to do one at 1 o'clock Eastern and one at 4:30 Eastern. The 1 o'clock show will talk about the first pick 5 sequence that wraps up with the Breeders' Cup Classic. And then the second one will talk about the pick 4 that starts in the race following the Classic. And obviously, you can just, if you want to play the pick 5, you take the Classic and you roll it into that. So that's what the plan is going to be over the next 2 days. I'm going to give you some ideas. We're going to take a look at favorite replays. We're going to take a look at some horses that I like in these 5 races. And at the very end, I'll give you a little bit of a pick 5 ticket. You can play it. You can throw it out entirely. You can disregard it. Do whatever you want. Most importantly, have an opinion, stick to it, and try to take a swing. Even if it seems like a crazy horse over the next 2 days, there's nothing crazy about the Breeders' Cup. We've seen crazy, crazy horses. Arkong winning at more than 100 to 1 in the past. You're going to see some very short prices win over the next 2 days. At the end of the day, whatever your style is, stick to it. Don't worry about what other people think. If you like a horse, bet them. So, without further ado, let's dive right into it. The first race that we're going to take a look at is race number 6. It is the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf Sprint. Note that the inside runner, the one out on bail, has been withdrawn, as has been the AE on the far outside. Smash It. That leaves us with still a pretty big field. And all things considered, I think this is a very difficult race to start off with. Ikoro Sieg is the most fascinating horse in the race, in my opinion. That's one of the Japanese raiders. And this is a horse that, look, his 2 starts so far have been spectacular. He's won going both left-handed and right-handed. I suppose if there is a knock in this race that we're taking a look at, this was back on September the 20th, not electric out of the starting gate, maybe a half-step slope, then quickly righted the ship, got up in there, and you see he goes off and dusts the field. I believe this is the fastest 2-year-old 6-furlong clocking that there's ever been in Japan, which by itself is remarkable. If he can transfer this form here to Del Mar this afternoon, obviously, he's a major threat. 7-2. Some folks may think that's a little bit on the short side. I think that's appropriate. I think this is a very good morning line, really, across the board for this entire race. 7-2 on the 8-horse Ikoro Sieg. I'm not opposed to. I did want to shop a little bit more, though, for a price. And just to the inside of the 8-horse is the 7 Whistle Jacket. I made him 9-2. He's 5-1 on the morning line. He goes out for Aidan O'Brien and Ryan Moore. We're taking a look at the run from Deauville. This is back on August the 18th in the pre-morning. And I think the thing I like most about this horse, is he a complete speedball, a complete runoff? No, but he's pretty quick early on. I do think they're going to run away from him a little bit early in this race here this afternoon. But I like the fact that we're taking a look at the replay. He just continues to find. So a horse that maybe he's not a jackrabbit out of the starting gate, but he's pretty good out of the gate as far as Europeans are concerned. He can get that good position, and he continues to find. I think that's very important in a spot like this. Aidan O'Brien mentioned that Ryan Moore was very pleased with the draw. Breaking from now, it'll end up being post position number 6, although he'll be wearing number 7. They'll slot in 1. I think he should be in a pretty good position. Is he good enough to run with Ikoro Sieg? Is he good enough to run with some of these other horses? I know many people like the inside 2 runners, Asterius and Big Mojo. You don't want to sleep on, I think, the best American hope, that being Governor Sam, going out for Alex Bregman and company. I think it's a very difficult way to kick off the pick 5 sequence. Accordingly, it's actually the race that I take the most coverage in. And again, we'll talk about that ticket at the very end. So that's the Juvenile Turf Sprint. I feel like it's always a crapshoot. This year, maybe not quite so. I think it's a pretty solid group put together. Maybe it's more formful than we've seen in the past. I do think kind of the middle part of the race, the gate anyway, is where this race will be decided. I went 7-8 in here to kick things off. We turn the page and move on to race number 7. It is the grade 1 Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies, 1 mile and a 16th on the dirt. You can see we've got a full field of 10 assembled in here. And let's begin with the morning line favorite. That is the 10 Scottish Lassie. Now, Scottish Lassie, I don't know. Look, you can go one of 2 ways with her and say, where did this race come from? Because on debut, she ran okay, but she packed it in pretty quickly. She's going to run into a couple of common foes that she finished well behind up at Saratoga. Then she comes back and does this in the Frisette. Absolutely airs not dissimilar from what we saw from Jody's Pride last year. Christina Blacker and I both like that filly, and Christina texted me earlier in the week and said, is Scottish Lassie Jody's Pride all over again? And I said, she very well may be. As far as the clock is concerned, she's the horse to beat, in my opinion. The 2 turns in the outside draw, the 2 turns that would be a little bit more of a concern for me than maybe the outside draw. I think she's fast enough to establish good early position in a spot like this. Immersive, I'd be lying if I said I loved her. We do have the tape. We're going to go back and take a look at the Alcibiades. She comes out of this race, as does Quick Kick. I like Quick Kick this day. You see Quick Kick on the outside, hanging on that left lead in the green silks. Immersive, just sort of grinding away, grinding away. I know from a speed figure standpoint, the race came back fast. And Immersive really hasn't done anything wrong. She's a perfect 3 for 3. She's won by more than a length in all of her starts. I don't know why. I don't love her in here. I don't love the Alcibiades as a whole. And that may be my downfall here in this pick 5 sequence, but I'm not using either of them. The most fascinating horse in this race to me, and whether she wins or loses, I mean, look, that's how the cookie crumbles. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. But American Bikini, I think, is a legitimate grade 1 caliber runner. This is back at Chukyo at the end of September. This is her first start off a lengthy layoff. And I think the thing that's most encouraging about this, 7/8 of a mile, she's forwardly placed. She is a filly that can get out to the front end. I don't think the gate's going to be any kind of an issue for her here in a spot like this. But I don't get the impression that she's a crazy speed type. I think she's just naturally fast. And the way that I've drawn this race up this afternoon in my head, I think the 9 and the 10 are the 2 fastest early on. I'm expecting to see American Bikini sent with Ryan Moore. I'm expecting to see Scottish Lassie sent from the far outside with Jose Lezcano. And selfishly, I hope it's a 2-speed number. I'd prefer the 9 end up winning American Bikini because she's my top pick. But I'm only going to use those 2 horses as far as this pick 5 is concerned, acknowledging that Immersive is dangerous. I know some people are very high on Snow White, possibly kind of turning the tables on Scottish Lassie, getting out to 2 turns. Obviously, the defection of non-compliant changes things a little bit as far as the complexion is concerned, but I really like American Bikini. I'm very interested to see what we get. My fear would be with all of these Japanese horses that they all are a little bit overbet, or they're bet more than maybe they should be in comparison to actually their credentials. But I do think they've brought over a very, very good group of horses, both for Friday and Saturday. The 9 American Bikini on top for me, only going 9 and 10 in the Juvenile Fillies. We move on to race number 8, 2 turns on the turf. We're going to go to the Juvenile Fillies Turf. And I don't think I'm stating anything crazy in here. As we take a look, this is the Juvenile Turf Sprint. Let's move on to race 8. That would be the Juvenile Fillies Turf. I think the most likely winner of the day, by far, is the one Lake Victoria. And you can see she's 8-5 on the morning line. I think a fair price, and some folks will probably roll their eyes. I think a fair number on her is 3-5. If you look and see what she's done over in Europe, obviously you see 4 for 4, you go, oh, well, it's all well and good. It's Aidan O'Brien, it's Ryan Moore. You'd expect her to be good. She's been awesome at all 4 starts. The most recent start in the Cheveley Park, she just kind of sets back a little bit. But the one thing I'll say is she's not necessarily one that is absolutely, she's not one-dimensional. Okay, 2 starts back in the Moyglare. She came from way out of it, tipped out wide, made the run. This run here at Newmarket, it says led overall for 3 furlongs out. I'm not worried about that. The thing I like the most about her is it seems like she is very, very versatile. If the pace doesn't materialize, she can go right out there and be forwardly placed. If somebody is hell-bent on the outside to clear off and make the front end, I think Ryan Moore is going to be content to just ride the pine, get her to settle a little bit, and kick on. If you had any questions about the form of that Cheveley Park, the runner-up came right back and finished second in a Group 2 in France just a few days ago. So the form is holding up very well. She's already the favorite, I believe, for the 1,000 guineas as far as the overseas market is concerned. And we see good Europeans come over here and run, as my buddy Eddie Olczyk is calling me right now. I got to hang up on you, Edzo. Sorry. We've seen good Europeans come over here and run in the Breeders' Cup. That's what the Breeders' Cup's all about. But with 2-year-olds, I don't typically think we get the absolute cream of the crop. Occasionally, you'll get a Modern Games that comes over, but keep in mind, he was a gelding. I don't often think you get the absolute elite of the elite 2-year-olds anyway to come over here and run in our races. Lake Victoria, I think, is elite of the elite. Now, maybe she's just a precocious 2-year-old and she won't train on to 3. We'll worry about that when we get to that point. As far as here and now is concerned today, no disrespect to any of our fillies or any of the other runners in here, whether they're coming from Europe or coming from elsewhere. I just think they're running into a bit of a monster right now. So Lake Victoria is going to be a single for me in this spot, as she'll probably be for the vast majority of people playing the pick 5, the pick 4. She's probably going to be, oh my goodness, I can't even imagine how much she's going to get bet in an event like the Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge. But I think she deserves to be a 3 to 5, 4 to 5 kind of chance. I made her 3 to 5. If you got even money, I don't often say that, but especially in a full field, 2-year-olds, I think even money would be an absolute chef's kiss for the one, Lake Victoria, in race number 8. That is the Juvenile Fillies Turf. So that's the single. I get real narrow in there. Now maybe we can get a little bit of coverage as we move on to race number 9. This is the Juvenile. Mile and a 16th. I think it's one of the best races put together as far as the 2-year-olds are concerned that we've had at the Breeders' Cup in many, many years. Part and parcel because of the favorite down on the inside, the one, East Avenue. He's been nothing short of spectacular. I had my reservations about him going into this race, the Breeders' Futurity at Keeneland, because the field that he beat at Ellis Park, if we're just being brutally honest, and that's what you're supposed to do when you handicap, terrible field that he ran into on debut. And I said, boy, he's going to take a lot more pressure. He's going to take on better horses. Guess what? None of it mattered. He absolutely aired. And this was a race that a lot of people looked at and said, you've got many, many pedigrees and connections that are probably thinking bigger and better down the road next year as a 3-year-old, not just in the here and now. And East Avenue just dusted them. I've heard mixed feelings about the inside draw for him. You're going to have to step on the gas and establish that position, or is somebody else going to just really send hard, come over on you? Now you're going to get dirt kicked in your face for the first time. If he is what the connections have sort of implied he is, I'm not sure that it makes a difference, A, but B, if he breaks, I think they're putting him on the front end. I talk about it often on FanDuel TV, the idea that if you think you have the best horse, you ride them like they're the best horse, regardless of the circumstances. You think of all the big blowout performances from the stars that we've seen over the past, let's say, 10 years. Think of the Flightlines of the world. How did he win? He went right to the front end. How did American Pharoah typically win? He went right to the front end. How did Gunrunner typically win? He went right to the front end. Arrogates Travers, what did he do? He went right to the front end. The biggest and best horses that we've seen over the past handful of years, they have a common theme. When they win, they go to the front, they control things. They say, if you're going to beat me, you got to come and catch me. And no one can typically do so. I think if East Avenue breaks, Tyler puts him on the front end and says, come and catch me. And if somebody does that, so be it. But I think that's how you want to play it. If you are a fan of this horse or you're involved with East Avenue, you're not getting cute. You're going to send him on to the front end. I think he is the likeliest winner, but this is a very deep race from top to bottom. I think you can make an argument for really 3 or 4 different horses in here. I know a lot of people do like Ferocious. I'm starting to wonder a little bit about him. You know, was he a little more sizzle than steak? It's too early to say definitively, but Jonathan's Way, he's done nothing wrong in 2 starts. He's been very, very impressive. Chancer McPatrick on the far outside. I like him. My fear would be, is he the closing sprinter, the closing 1-turn type? Now you got to deal with the outside draw, 2 turns. I think he gets some pace, but at a short price, I don't really need him. The horse that I find most interesting, and I've talked to enough people that I respect that have brought up similar questions. Why didn't Gaming run in the 2-turn race at Santa Anita? He didn't seem to miss any time as far as the workouts are concerned in the morning, but Bob Baffert chose to bypass that race following this blowout effort in the Del Mar Futurity. I think he's a bit of a work in progress. And having said that, I'm still picking him in here. I think he's going to offer a fair price. I made him 5 to 1. He's 8 to 1 on the morning line. You can see right now he's struck the front end. Flavian Pratt rode him this day. Errat Ortiz Jr. will ride him here later on this afternoon. If you watch his morning workouts, he is, let's say, not all that pretty. Whoever he's paired up with typically outworks him. I don't want to say he's lazy. I think he's a bit of a quirky horse. I think he is still a 2-year-old and a proper 2-year-old where he's just kind of, yeah, all right, I'll run when I want to run. And in the mornings, it doesn't really matter. The 2 races he's run in the afternoon, I think they're both very good. The debut at 6.5, he went to the front end. He was extremely late to change leads, but I got the impression that, again, just kind of a green horse, which for Bob Baffert, you know, you think of some of the better trainers with 2-year-olds. You don't automatically think of green runners with a Baffert horse or a Todd Pletcher horse or a Chad horse. They're usually very professional and they go right to the front end. Gaming, that little bit of a tardy lead change on debut, and then the way that he's worked in the mornings gives me the impression that maybe there's still more to come. And that's why that Futurity, I thought, that we just took a look at, was very encouraging because he sat in behind horses. He tipped out 2-3 path. He went on with it very well, and he galloped out strong. He got a 4 3/4 on Thoroughgraph. I know he's a little bit light on Buyers, but I'm going to give Gaming a chance in here. If I'm going to get a price on Baffert, Pegram and Company, Arad Ortiz Jr. at Del Mar in the Breeders' Cup with a 2-year-old, I'd feel like an idiot after the race if I didn't have a piece of him. I'm going to use him as far as the pick 5 is concerned. I'm going to use 2 other logical runners. The one East Avenue, who we talked about. I'm going to use Jonathan's Way because I was out at Churchill Downs when he won that Iroquois. I thought it was very impressive. I thought he beat a decent group. Not a great group, but a decent group. I'm not going to use Chancellor McPatrick. Similar to the immersive logic in the Juvenile Fillies. Can he win? Certainly. He might be the best horse in the race. I just think, given the price that he's likely to go off at, having to deal with 2 turns for the first time, having to deal with the outside draw, having to deal with Del Mar, which may be not the friendliest to horses coming from way out of it, I just don't think the value is going to be there with him. And yes, I'm using 2 other favorites in here along with Gaming. I think they are more appropriately priced, or will be anyway, in the multi-race wagers than maybe Chancellor McPatrick will. The one wild card I'm going to throw in there is the 8 Shin Believe, who comes in from Japan. I mentioned it earlier. I think the Japanese are sending a very good group of horses here, both for today and for tomorrow. I have no idea what you do with a horse that debuts at 9 furlongs and wins by 100, but he was awesome. He won with ease. His ears were pricked. People that I respect that pay attention to Japanese racing, my buddy Dan Illman from the Daily Racing Form, he's projected a speed figure that is very competitive in a spot like this. They paid a boatload of cash for this horse as a 2-year-old in training, $800,000. So I can't imagine they're just coming over here for ha-has. Shin Believe, is he the likeliest winner? No, this is a very good group of 2-year-olds put together in the juvenile, but at a big price, probably every bit of that 10 on the morning line, if not more. I'll throw a little piece of Shin Believe in there in the 4th leg of the sequence. And then we get to the payoff leg, race number 10, 5th leg, going a mile on the turf. It's the Juvenile Turf. I think it's a fascinating race. I don't know. It's a difficult call as far as quality versus betting opportunity. I think it's a fabulous betting race if you have an opinion. How many of these horses turn into stars down the road? I don't know. Maybe there is 1 or 2 in here. But I think it's a very competitive group from top to bottom. The first horse we're going to talk about in here is New Century. Now, New Century comes out of the summer stakes up at Woodbine. He ran into El Qudra. He ran into Dream On. Of the top 3 finishers in this race, which, by the way, earned fast figures across the board. Any of the commercially available figs, some of the stuff I've seen from Europe, it's a fast race. It is around 1 turn. It's around the E.P. Taylor turf course. Much different situation than what you've got coming on at Del Mar. Top 3 horses, I'd rather have Dream On. The Cassie horse, who was out there close to the front end, got extremely goofy down there in deep stretch, swapping leads, popping in and out. But that was his first time going out beyond 6.5 furlongs. I think of the 3 names in there, I'd rather take Dream On, and I'm going to pitch out the other 2. Maybe that's going to be the demise of me, but at short numbers, if I don't love them, why am I going to include them just for the sake of including them? Then that all of a sudden opens this race up to a bit of chaos. And that's the way that I'm going to approach it. I like the form of the Pilgrim from Aqueduct back on September 28th. I think the top 2 finishers in there are both legitimate runners. My preference is Zulu Kingdom. Zulu Kingdom is going to be the 5 horse here this afternoon out of Del Mar. He's done nothing wrong for Chad. He's a perfect 3 for 3. And I like the fact that this is a horse that I think he's got a legitimate turn of foot. Now, it may look a little bit sort of, kind of subpar in there, but keep in mind, they're running in a bog. Take a look at the horse in the St. Elias Silks right there, kicking on at the very end. That's this afternoon, the 3 horse, Noble Confessor. That was the first time on turf for Todd Pletcher. Tyler's going to take them out here this afternoon. I think both of those horses are very live chances. My preference would be Zulu Kingdom. He's 8-1 on the morning line. I pegged him at 5-1, but I think Noble Confessor absolutely is in with a big chance. I'm going to use both of those horses. And then if I'm throwing out those 2 Europeans that we talked about coming out of the Woodbine race, now you can really start to get kind of creative and add in some numbers. I'm going to use a little bit of Dream On, the 2 horse, who I think is going to be forwardly placed. I don't know if he's fast enough to make the top, but he might be right there. And again, this configuration at Del Mar, you don't have a heck of a lot of time once you hit the top of the lane to make your move. So I think he's going to be in a pretty good position. I'll use him at a giant price. I'm going to use the inside runner, Satono Carnival, another instance where I've got pretty reliable numbers, both on Thorograph from a commercially available standpoint, but even some folks that I know that project figs, that run in that Group 3 back in July. And keep in mind, a July 2-year-old, that stacks up well with what we've seen from these horses within the past month. I think the one Satono Carnival is very, very live in here. I made him 7-1 as opposed to 20 on the lines. Rachel King will be riding. This would be a fantastic story, obviously. Would be the third female jockey ever to win a Breeders' Cup race if they were able to do that. So I think the 1 is very live in this spot. And then the only other horse that I would throw in there is the 10 Menti. And wouldn't it be, ironic's not the right word, but it would be fitting that Fierceness's little brother follows up a year later and wins a Breeders' Cup race, albeit on a different surface. I thought his run in the Futurity was very good. His debut on dirt was very fast. The 2-turn piece, maybe it's a little bit of an unknown, but then again, if you're going to follow in your brother's footsteps, 2 turns isn't an issue for Fierceness. So Menti, I wonder if he does get a little bit of buzz and a little bit of play just simply from that Fierceness factor, but he's the other one that I'd throw in at a little bit of a price. So for me, I'm playing the 10th race for a little bit of chaos. The top selection will be the 5 Zulu Kingdom. So there's a look at the 5 races all by themselves. Let's take a look at my pick 5 ticket that I've put together here. Yeah, we're going to have to peel off a little bit more than what we typically do, but it's Breeders' Cup happens once a year. This is a 50-cent play for $120, singling Lake Victoria in race number 8. That is the Juvenile Fillies Turf. I'm a big proponent of pressing up your opinions. If you don't want to just punch a caveman ticket, I don't blame you. Especially with her, many people will be approaching this as if it's a pick 4. If that's the case, and let's say you want to use this as a template, break it down and start saying, okay, well, I actually like these 2 horses in this race, this one and this one, these 3 in the other. And instead of just playing it for 50 cents, play that combination for $2. And then have your backups, your savers for 50 cents. And that way, if you're right in all but one leg, you're still going to get paid. If you're right in all the legs, not only are you going to get paid, but you're going to have a multiple of that 50-cent base bet. So that's how I'm approaching this late pick 5 here this afternoon. I think it's a great day of racing. I think you may have potential superstar power here on this Future Stars Friday, specifically with Lake Victoria. And then, look, maybe I'm going to look very foolish. I think American Bikini has all the potential in the world. And we just talked about the Juvenile on dirt that you may very well be looking at a Kentucky Derby winner in the future. So it's a great day of racing. It is the first of 2, obviously, for the Breeders' Cup. And a reminder, you can catch all the action over on FanDuel Racing, FanDuel TV as well. We've got great offers available for you as well. Don't want to sleep on that. Racing.fanduel.com, where you can get all the information. You get a $20 no-sweat win bet on the Juvenile today and the Classic tomorrow. I believe there's also win bet insurance available on select races. You can find all the details. Again, racing.fanduel.com. Be sure to check on all the information over there. Be sure to check out all the coverage, both of the Players Show and obviously on FanDuel TV. We're going to have all the other racing action that continues on as well. This was today. We're going to come back and do this again 2 more times tomorrow. 1 o'clock Eastern. We'll go over the first 5 Breeders' Cup races, that pick 5 sequence all by itself. Then we'll take a little bit of a breather. 4:30 Eastern, we'll go over the late pick 4. And as I mentioned, if you wanted to play the late pick 5, you just take the Classic and you roll it in for that late pick 4 sequence tomorrow afternoon. No better time of the year than Breeders' Cup World Championships. Looking forward to kicking things off. I believe first post, 5:45 on the East Coast, 2:45 on the West Coast. So still have a couple hours if you want to take a look at what we talked about here. Chop it up, disregard it, play it as is, do whatever you want. It's your money. Just make sure you're playing over at the FanDuel Racing app or racing.fanduel.com. Thanks all for joining here. Again, we'll be back here again tomorrow, 1 o'clock Eastern. Hopefully we're all coming back a little bit richer than we are here this afternoon. Good luck the rest of the way.